Today, we have a special guest speaker, Bart Campolo, who's going to give us a talk on the power of love. Bart is a secular community builder, counselor, and writer who currently serves as a humanist chaplain at the University of Cincinnati. He is also the host of the podcast Humanize Me, about building great relationships, cultivating wonder, and making things better for other people. Some of his podcast guests have spoken here at Seattle Atheist Church, including Sasha Sagan, Phil Zuckerman, and Yasmin Mohammed. Let's put our hands together and welcome Bart Campolo.
Well, thank you. I don't think I've ever gotten a Zoom ovation before, and I have to tell you, it's deeply uninspiring. It's funny because I am one of those kind of talkers who relies upon crowd response and kind of interaction with my audience. And so this is easily the hardest speaking engagement I will do this year. Lovely as you are in your 1-inch tall video screens, it's tough. It's tough, but we're going to soldier on. We're going to soldier on. And the folks who asked me to do this said, try to come in there and go into one thing, say it well, say it as fast as you can, because the people in this room like to talk after you talk. So I've got my timer on. I'm gonna try to keep this under 25 minutes, and we'll see how we do. All right. What are you gonna do? You can't stop me. So I'm gonna start you out with a quote from the ancient philosopher Archilochus, who said, "A fox knows many things, but a hedgehog knows one big thing." And I share that quote with you because earlier in my life, I thought of myself as a fox, partly because I was so dashingly handsome, but partly because I felt like I knew a lot about a lot of different things. I wasn't an expert on anything. But the older I get, the more I realize that I am becoming even more of a hedgehog. I just know one thing. And so whatever the topic is that I'm asked to talk about, I always talk about the same thing because this is the only thing I know. So here you go. If you're a note taker, if you're looking for the money line, the money shot of this little talk, I'm going to give it to you right up front. For most people, meaning in life is all about human relationships. For most people, meaning in life is all about human relationships. Now, don't get me wrong. First of all, I'm not saying for everybody. I think we human beings tend to live on a bell curve. And there are things that are true for the vast majority of us in the center of that bell curve, but there are outliers out there on either end. There are people, there are highly autistic people for whom meaning in life does not depend on relationship. It cannot depend on relationship because sometimes relationships can be very, very hard for those people. And then there are people at the other end of the spectrum. There are people for whom meaning in life is all about money or power or accomplishments. But if you dig below most people's obvious or like sort of first layer motivations, when you get down to why do they want the money or why do they want the power or why are they practicing the piano, it usually comes down to relationships. People and things can only matter to each other. Now I probably tipped my hand off that I'm one of you atheists or whatever you want to call it, one of the agnostics, because you say, well, no, but we all matter to the creator. And I'm one of those people who believes that the universe doesn't care very much. That the universe itself doesn't care. People say to me, wait, are you saying the meaning of life is relationships? I go, no. I don't think there is any meaning to life. Like, I don't think there is any overarching meaning. There would have to be somebody for it to be meaningful too. And I don't see any evidence of that. I'm saying that the universe has no meaning. But within the universe, creatures have emerged and evolved to such a place that they matter to each other, that there is no meaning to the universe, but there is a lot of meaning in the universe, and we create it by caring about each other. And so the problem that I've been wrestling with for most of my life, both when I was a devout evangelical Christian and after I made my way out of that community and became a humanist chaplain, is how do we create a context or a community, if you will? How do we create a setting in which meaningful relationships are available to people who aren't very good at building them for themselves? Because in my experience in the world, I come across people all the time who didn't grow up in a loving context, that didn't naturally pick up the skills of building those kinds of relationships. I meet lonely people. I feel sometimes like Eleanor Rigby in the Beatles song. You remember that? All the lonely people, where do they all come from? All the lonely people, where do they all belong? I meet a lot of lonely people. And occasionally I meet somebody who naturally has lots of wonderful relationships around them. And I'm reminded of Leo Tolstoy, who in Anna Karenina said, all happy families are the same, but each unhappy family is unhappy in its own particular way. And when I meet people that are good at relationships, that relationships come naturally to, that are surrounded by a loving network of people, there's a sameness about their backgrounds. There's a sameness about their skill sets. There's a sameness about their things that are, they may be tall or short or extroverted or introverted, or they may be really smart or really dumb, but there's still these things that people that have close relationships all have in common, and you can spot them. But then there seem to be a million and one ways that people miss out on that. So for most of my life, my concern has been, how do we create space for those people? How do we help people figure that out? That's what got me into Christianity in the first place. I was a nice kid in high school, and one of the guys on my soccer team took me along to a youth group meeting. And it was 300 kids in a room with a rock and roll band, and they were playing games, and they were interacting. And I had never been in a place where high school kids were as connected or loved each other as much as I was with these kids. And I thought, man, whatever it is that's going on here, I want to be a part of it, because I was a nice kid who wanted to make things better for other people. And church, evangelical Christianity for me seemed like a club of nice people that wanted to make things better for other people. That was the youth group I wandered into. Now, I know it's not that way for everybody. I know that's not everybody's experience with evangelical Christianity. But for me, boy, it was a wonderful experience to come into that place. And all of a sudden, I had a code. This is what the way we live. And I had set relationships. These are my brothers. These are my sisters. This is my mentor. These are the people I'm looking out for. I had language. I had purpose. I had identity. It was amazing for me as a high school kid to get swept up in that community. But the thing that was the most exciting for me about it wasn't that we were all going to go to heaven, or that we were all going to get out of hell. It was that there was a community that made it its business to create space for people who couldn't find the connections that they wanted all by themselves. Not only did we make space for them, heck, we went out and found them. We went searching for them. We looked for lonely people at our high school. Said, hey, come to youth group. We looked for kids that were struggling in one way or another, and we would sweep in and try to befriend them. I mean, it was our purpose was to reach out and draw people into a community where they could be transformed. Now, the core narrative at the center of that became very problematic for me over the years. My ability to believe in supernaturalism slowly dissipated over the 30 years that I was an evangelical Christian. But my goodness, my commitment to that central mission that idea of creating community and creating a place for people, that only grew and grew. My commitment to justice grew. My commitment to community grew. My commitment to transforming the lives of broken people, that only grew over those 30 years. And so when I finally came to the end and I couldn't believe in any supernaturalism anymore, I just didn't have it in me left. I remember sort of the biggest disappointment to me was, oh my goodness, where am I going to find a group of people that I can connect with the way I did at church? I honestly, I didn't think it would be that hard. I mean, I just thought I would look it up in the phone book. I would look for the people that I would just find a group of people. I said, well, there must be secular people that want to transform the lives of other people through love, that want to make the world a better place by loving other people. And so I did. I went looking for those groups, and I would go to these atheist clubs, and they were not warm. They were not loving. They were a bunch of angry old guys with black t-shirts sitting in a basement with Richard Dawkins books under their arm, making fun of Christians. And they all wanted to debate, and they were all committed to truth and reason. And I didn't disagree with a thing they said, but I didn't want to be there. I wasn't moved. I wasn't inspired. It wasn't joyous to me. When that video you saw of those people, the Broadway cast singing that song, when I see something like that, I go like, I wish I want to be in drama. Is there a play? Can I join? Because I want to be in a room full of people that look at each other that way, and that connect with each other that way, and that love each other that way. And that's what I was missing. That's what I was missing. I don't know if you can relate to that. I think the whole country can relate to that right now. The reason I think the whole country can relate to that right now is because the most popular show in America is Ted Lasso. Can I get a witness? Anybody out there seen Ted Lasso? I see that hand. Is there another? You know, like, if you haven't watched it, it's on Apple TV, and it's a show about an American football coach who knows nothing about soccer, but he ends up becoming the coach of a Premier League soccer team in England, where soccer is everything. And he doesn't know anything about soccer, but boy, does he know how to build a community. Boy, does he know how to take a bunch of people that can't get along with each other and create a family and a connection and a place for them. Even people that aren't very good at relationships. Ted Lasso seems to have this knack of pulling together. And people that watch the show think, oh, I want that. Where's Ted Lasso? Where's the Ted Lasso at my company? Where's the Ted Lasso in my family? Where's somebody that can help us make it all work? And I'm inspired by that show. Inspired by that Broadway thing that you saw. I'm inspired by a lot of things, but the truth of the matter is that it's easy to build community around a Broadway play because everybody has to work together to put on the play. They're not just there. They're not just building community for the sake of building community. They're building community to put on a show. A soccer team, they're not just there to like, let's be friends. In fact, you take people that would never otherwise be friends and you put them on a football team or a soccer team or a marching band and stuff like that. And they will find ways to get along, and they will find ways to connect because they have an external goal that keeps them in the room. They actually have to work through conflict. If you've ever been on a football team or a soccer team, you go like, I can't stand that guy, but boy, he's really good at scoring goals. We need him on the team. I better find a way to get along with him because we need that guy. We need that woman. We need that. That was what church was like for me when I was in evangelical church. So there were people there that were so different from me. Old ladies, little kids, people of different political persuasion. You say, well, what held you all together? Oh, well, we had an external purpose. There was a thing we were trying to do. We were trying to win everybody to Jesus and save their souls, and so that we could all go to heaven together. And that external goal, that sense of like, we've got to save everybody, that helped us stay in the room long enough to work through conflicts. And we figured out how to get along with each other because we had something we had to do. And I realized that that was the thing when I started going to all those atheist churches, is that they were interested in reason, and they were interested in truth. They were interested in learning. But in the end, those goals were compelling enough to get them there. But if they ever fell out or had an argument or somebody didn't get along, the person would just leave. Like, I can go pursue truth somewhere else. They didn't need each other to do anything that none of them could do alone. They didn't need each other. And therefore, they were really good at liking each other, and they weren't very good at loving each other. Because, of course, you like somebody until you don't like them anymore, and then you leave. But most of you guys have families, so that you know that you can love somebody and not even like them very much. That you can feel deeply connected to somebody and have to work through conflict with somebody, even if you're not getting along, because you have some kind of a deeper gut level connection. In my own struggle, after I came out of Christianity and going to all those clubs, none of them were compelling to me. Eventually, I ended up reading a book called Good Without God that was written by a guy named Greg Epstein. He's the humanist chaplain at Harvard. It's the first book I had read that gave me an inkling that secular ministry might be a thing. That there might be a place for like an old youth worker type like myself, you know, like one of those high energy guys like, hey, let's play a game. The book was so compelling to me. I jumped on a plane, flew from Cincinnati out to Boston because I wanted to see it for myself. And I spent a weekend there at Harvard. And when I walked into the Humanist Hub at Harvard, where they were having the sort of the secular humanist campus minute fellowship, it looked like every youth group I had ever been a part of in evangelical church. Just a bunch of nice kids hugging each other, talking about the mission trip they went on last week, swapping books, talking about people they were trying to win into the group or trying to recruit. And I thought, what's going on here? And I sat down with Greg and I said, this just looks like everything I've ever been a part of, except without the supernatural overlay. And he said, Bart, I think you could probably do this for yourself. You know a lot about this. He said, doing campus ministry like a humanist, it's just like what you know. It's pulling together a group of people and challenging them not to pursue truth as an end in itself, not to pursue reason as an end in itself, not to study science as an end in itself, but to use all of those to say, let's do all of those things. Let's pursue reason and science and truth. But those won't be the ends. Those will be the means. The end will be to transform the lives of other people for the better. To love as a verb the rest of the world. He basically said to me, Bart, you instinctively know what I'm telling you. It doesn't work without love at the center of it. And that's all I've got to say to you, is that humanist, secular churches, secular groups, secular atheist clubs, all these things, they spring up over and over again and have for the last 300 years, ever since the scientific revolution. And they last a few years or a few decades, and then they tend to fall apart. They don't seem to have the staying power. And I've tried to figure out why all these secular organizations rise up and fall down and rise up and fall down. And I'm pretty sure it has to do with that because they build themselves around truth or around reason or around science or around protecting separation of church and state, about anything except transforming the world through love. I don't think you concede that to the believers. I think that's the ball game. Carl Sagan, you mentioned Sasha. Carl Sagan once said, for small creatures such as we, the vastness of the universe is bearable only through love. It's not bearable through truth. It's understandable a little bit through science, but it's only bearable through love. And the truth of the matter is that most of the secular community building I see they won't say the word love out loud. They won't say that's what we're here for. When we were starting our little fellowship here in Cincinnati, it was a bunch of ex-church people. And I was nervous. We had those people, we were all trying to figure out what we were going to do. And at one point we were talking and somebody was talking about, we need to be reason and truth and this and that and the other, science. And one of the women stood up and said, listen, I just cut to the chase right here. If this thing is going to be about anything but love, I just don't have time for it. I can do truth on my own. I can do reason on my own. There's only one thing that I can't do that you need a group to do. And that is you need a group to create an atmosphere of love that can transform other people's lives. I don't know if any of you are alcoholics, recovering alcoholics, but that's to the extent that that program works. It doesn't work because of the higher power. I don't think there really is one. It works because of the power of people loving each other. CrossFit's the same way. Weight Watchers, any place where people transform each other, at the center of it, there's always a connection. There's always a community of people that care about each other. So when I got to USC, after I met Greg, I thought I can do that. So I got them to appoint me the Humanist chaplain at USC out in Los Angeles. And I went out there and they had a little atheist club on campus, 5 kids in it. Once a year, they would get out and make fun of Christians. They would set up a table and debate, and nobody liked them and they didn't much like anybody else. And the dean of religious life said, you can start with those guys, go meet them. So I pulled them in and I said, look, if you want to do that make fun of Christians thing, I don't know how to, I'm not interested. But I said, I could teach you how to create a community that was good at loving each other, so good at loving each other that other people would want to join you just to be a part of it. I said, we could actually, if you wanted to, we could use science and reason and truth to make ourselves better lovers, such that we were actually better lovers than anybody else on the campus. And everybody would want to be a part of our group because it would be such a wonderful and fun place to be. And they looked at me and said, that sounds like a lot more fun than what we're doing. Let's do that. And over the course of the next 3 years, I proved to myself and to those kids that it wasn't hard, that it wasn't rocket science, that it was the same old stuff that's worked in every other community, every marching band that works, every soccer team that works, every Broadway play that works, every community theater that works, and every church that works. You give me a group of people that decide that they want to do something together that none of them can do alone, and that is to create a context of loving kindness. And it's not that hard. I shouldn't say it's not that hard. It's not that complicated. It actually is kind of hard. Most of you are part of families, so you know what I'm talking about. Loving other people isn't complicated, but it's awfully difficult. People are, what was it Gertrude Stein said? People are hell. People are rough. And creating a loving context is really hard. And that's why I'll give you the one last piece I've got to say, and then I'll shut up. And that's why you got to have a game that you're trying to win, or a show you're trying to put on, or a world you're trying to save. You've got to have a reason to keep you in the love game when it gets hard. You've got to have a reason to work on your conversation skills. You've got to have a reason to learn how to cook if you don't know how to cook, or to know how to clean up if you're such a bad cook that somebody else is going to do the cooking and you're going to have to do the cleaning up. You got to have a reason to learn how to show up at a junior high soccer game and cheer for a kid who's not yours. You got to have a reason to learn how to confront somebody who's just lost their aunt or their uncle or their wife or their child, and to learn how to grieve with people. Those are skills, you see. And you're not going to learn those skills unless there's something you're trying to do that's compelling. And I would say to you guys that the thing that you probably might be a compelling thing, especially if you're as smart as some of you look, is you're probably already aware that the world is heading into a very hard time. That it's upon us, the viruses, the global warming, the climate change, the economic breakdown, the disparity of incomes, the rise of immigration, the political divisiveness. You're probably aware that we're headed to a time, I don't know how bad it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be like The Walking Dead, where zombies are running around. I don't know if it's going to be like the Great Depression. I don't know what it's going to look like, but it's not going to look like it looked 5 years ago, right? We're already past that. And I'm convinced that in this hard time, a lot of people are going to suffer unless they can find a tribe, unless they can find a safe place to be, unless they can have a family around them, a family of their own choosing, probably, of people that know how to resolve conflict and cook for each other and give hope to each other's children, even though things are getting worse and not better. Like, I think people are going to need not less tribalism, but a more positive kind of tribalism, where there's 50 of them over here and 150 of them over there, and a group in Wyoming that if you fly to Wyoming, you go like, yeah, that's where those people are, the ones, and they're not spouting supernatural craziness, because hardly anyone's going to be able to believe that stuff in the future. Fewer and fewer people can believe it right now. These tribes are not going to be built around supernatural mythologies. They're going to be built around shared values and good loving skills and good leadership. They're going to need an atheist church in every city, not just Seattle. But the churches are going to have to be a lot better than they are now. They're going to have to be places where you can walk in, and if you don't know how to be a part of a loving community, they will teach you. They will show you, because they know what they're doing. I think there's going to be a lot of people in the water and not a lot of lifeboats. And you people have the makings of a lifeboat. I watched your opening. I watched the way you talk to each other, the things you're doing. Like, you have the makings of a lifeboat. And there are a lot of people who need to be there. And you need to stop hoping that people will join because it'll make your church better and bigger. And you need to start looking for people who need to be loved. And work yourself around to being better and better and better at doing that, because it's fun, because it'll give you a reason to work through the conflicts that you have with each other, because it's compelling and exciting, because it's the perfect use of science. It's the perfect use of reason. There are new studies coming out about how to listen better. There are new studies coming out about how to connect. There are new studies coming out about which kinds of songs cause people to feel more bonded to each other. Like, you science freaks, I want to turn you loose, but not to learn about truth for its own sake, but to learn about truth for the sake of something worth learning it for. The loving relationships that are the only meaning that really exist in this universe. If you've ever heard me talk anywhere before, you just heard it again. I'm a hedgehog. I only know one thing, and that's it. So thanks for listening to me. I'm done.
All right. Thank you, Bart. Can everyone unmute themselves? So before Bart complained, we didn't give him an enthusiastic enough applause. So everyone, please unmute yourself. Clap extra enthusiastically. Come on, let's see what we can do.